So good news, guys. We have a balance update, and there is a test mod. You guys can go and check out all of these potential changes, but they are potential. I think it's been the case in most of every other patch that it gets, tweaked a little bit before it actually goes live, although I think we have also had some just push straight to live. But I don't know, for this one, since it is full of a lot of big changes, like drastic changes, I do think this will be tweaked before it goes live. But let's check out what the ideas here are. We have their goals of the patch, as well as the actual listing of every single patch note. We're also going to have a new map pool, but I'll do another video for that one. So the patch goals, I think this is crucial to get into the same headspace that the balance council is at. So first of all, make Protoss more stable and professional level, and especially versus Raven pushes, and we're able to fight Terran mid-late game armies without solely relying on disruptors. So basically in TVP, the early to mid game is very difficult for Protoss right now, and then they're saying that they don't like how much of the mid to late game relies on disruptors for the Protoss side. I'll give thoughts a bit, I guess, after. Increase the variety in mid game and late game army compositions by reducing the strength of mass ghosts, banelings, and disruptors. Okay, make over-specialized units, Cyclone, Mothership, and Infestor viable throughout more stages of the game. Bring more visual clarity to important units on the map, as well as relevant abilities like Widowmine targeting and Disruptor's cooldown indicator. Promote more interaction in late-game scenarios by making units such as Tempest, Mothership, and Broodlord more maneuverable. Okay, so I actually don't like a lot of these goals. So I think that Protoss, any attempt to make Protoss more stable on a professional level is actually a good goal, and I do think that Ravens are too strong, and I can see why Protosses don't want to rely on disruptors for the mid to late game, but I actually think that that's a really interesting and fun dynamic to watch as a spectator. Personally, I even have fun playing that style and against that style as Terran, since Protoss and Terran are kind of my mains. And so I don't actually really agree to particularly target that, but I understand why they're doing it, because it really does boil down to that being just the only way to get into that mid to late game scenario. We'll see how they actually approach this as we get into the particular nerfs and buffs. Increase variety in mid and late game compositions. I think that's also a very good goal, but is difficult to accomplish. I do not agree with make over specialized units like the Cyclones and Infestors viable throughout more stages of the game. I think they're perfectly fine where they are. The Mothership, I can definitely get on board with the idea of making it more viable in other situations, but again, we'll see how they do that, and then I'll comment more. Bring more visual clarity. I think that's just always a good thing, actually. And promote more interaction in late game scenario. I do not believe making Tempest, Mothership, and Broodlord more maneuverable is actually a good thing. I think that sounds freaking terrible. But let's get into the actual individual patches with those goals in mind. Let's see what they have done with the units. So they wanted to change the Cyclone to be less of a specific type of units, the specialized unit. I'm just going to go off and right off the bat say that I don't really feel like it's all that specialized of a unit. Its role in all of the matchups feels fine to me. Its presence in Mech TVZ or in the very occasional opener in TVZ bio-wise, it is rare there for sure. The security it gives in both TVT and TVP, I basically think it's totally fine. And completely redesigning it, I think is just not a good target with the limited amount of options that we have in the year 2023 with StarCraft. By that, I mean, of course, the amount of attention that Blizzard gives us and the amount of work that people who probably aren't being paid are doing to do this. I think this is just a completely wrong approach, and that there are other things that are more worthwhile putting that limited time and effort that we have into. But let's see what the actual patch is. Reduced cost, no tech lab, health reduced and armor reduced, so it's even more of a glass, maybe not cannon. Well, hold on. Supply cost reduced, auto attack range increased, attack damage, attack speed is better. Is that what that is? Lock on ice cycle and auto attack damage. So it used to be basically a spell. And it also no longer ignores armor. And that's because it was a spell, it ignored armor. No longer is it a delay before first shot. Okay. Lock on cooldown removed. Lock on, but it still locks on. I guess the lock on is now it's kind of like default attack, I guess. Or no, it's still a special thing. But its max range is severely reduced. Multiple cyclones that auto cast lock on to the same target, which I feel like it's like a big nerf to TVZ, isn't it? Magnet accelerator is going to be gone. Move speed reduced. New upgrade. The upgrade increases move speed. Oh my god. I actually hate when I guess RTS in general does this, but when they start touching speed and then they're like, well, we'll know what to do. Like, you know, it's going to be a boring unit without that speed. We'll give it an upgrade. And then no one freaking gets the upgrade, man. Like, I absolutely freaking hate the Cyclone change. I really do not think it's necessary. If it's necessary, I feel like in the hierarchy of necessary things for StarCraft right now, it must be very low. I just don't touch it. It's fine. Good lord. Maybe I'm going to be more passionate about this patch than I was anticipating initially. Because usually I try to be very, unattached to balance because I want to be a fair commentator. But when it comes to designs, that I guess I'll get heavy on the passion for, because please stop. And increase viability of mech-based gameplay against Protoss. No, this is not the time to try and make mech good versus Protoss. No, this is not the time. Oh my god, I feel like if this was 2011, I'd be totally on board because Blizzard would be so involved. There'd be so many additional balance changes afterwards that would go through quickly and cleanly. To try and change this for really, I feel like no good reason with, again, such limited options. It's just not it. Oh man. Excuse me, sorry, I didn't expect this. But anywho, moving on. Ghost, snipe damage reduced, EMP radius reduced. So I understand this totally and completely. I heavily disagree with people who come into my chat and say that the Ghost is super overpowered or is super broken, and that people just mass Ghost and that's all you have to do, because I don't think that's actually been the case since Maru was abusing super late game Turtle a year ago. And then I thought Zergs got better against it. I do understand that it might be a little too powerful versus Protoss, but I feel like with the initial EMP change where it got rid of the upgrade but then gave it a bigger boost as default, I thought that was actually really fine. I feel like I have actually been seeing a decent amount of Storm play in PvT as well. Not something that is relied upon, to be fair, but I do see it, and I see it being effective despite how good our Terrans have gotten at defending or attacking into Storm. Because for a while, I thought it was actually quite impossible for Protoss to do it. And it was, even without the Ghost, actually, Terran's just so good at splitting and dropping and multitasking. But then Protoss have kind of, proven that to be, not totally completely true. They definitely have been using Ghost openers or Storm openers to change up their play as well as surprise their Terran opponents and hit some timings with that type of style as well. I think it's actually in an okayish place. I don't mind the idea of Storm being more viable and Ghost being a little less overall good, I suppose. But I think this is a really touchy area. I think you gotta be very, very careful. Snipe along or one-shot units as Zealots and Roaches. I mean, I really feel like that was never that much of a problem. In fact, I think that was actually a fair trade-off. One shot, like all of that energy for the Ghost going into a Zealot or a Roach was usually, an actual, like, something that you would have to consider doing. But I guess people who drop 20 Zealots as a run-by and are getting one shot by the 20 Ghosts are disagreeing. Widow Mines, Drilling Claws now also make the Widow Mine on burrow twice as fast. Wow, targeting line is more visible. Of course, targeting line more visible. Can't complain about that. I don't think anyone will. But the Drilling Claws makes the Widow Mine on burrow twice as fast? I really don't think that's necessary either. Turns some of the strength to active Widow Mine micro. Was lost after the Drilling Claws burrow speed nerf. I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a little too fast. I guess I see where they're coming from. Because in TVZ engagements, it's often just you've planted your Widow Mines and you either take the engagement or you don't. There's not a whole lot of, I guess, microing those back, but I think twice as fast sounds like an awful lot. Medevac speed upgrade replaced with Caduceus Reactor. Oh my god, they're bringing this back. Increase Medevac's energy regeneration by 100%. So this is not the healing regeneration, rather there's the fact that they regen energy themselves very quickly. And it's upgraded from the fusion core. Minimap radius increased, just making it more visible on the minimap, which I think is fine, especially because it standardized the minimap size of other units. It is a more useful upgrade than speed, and I just made fun of speed upgrades, so I have to be more on board with this, I guess, by default. But I just feel like the medevac is almost never going to get an upgrade that actually is useful, or rather that is worth investing into until you're basically getting all of the kind of miscellaneous upgrades, as I call them. You know, the point in which you're both on 6 bases and kind of split map scenario, and then, of course, they're going to get the boost upgrade, you know? I feel like there's very few things you can do for the medevac to make it a build upgrade, you know what I mean? Like something that's a part of your build or that is really heavily impactful to the early and mid game. So, you know, because I just like speed upgrades so much, I guess I'm okay with it, but I don't know if it's really going to matter. Raven Interference Matrix now requires a research. This is going to really change the Raven, and I think that's a fun change, and most importantly, again, on that kind of hierarchy of needs that I was talking about, like maybe everything here is kind of necessary, a lot of approaches are necessary, but like what's the biggest problem? I would say the Interference Matrix is one of the biggest issues, is maybe the right word, but certainly one of the biggest things about StarCraft games. The matrices are really just so important, and perhaps a little too important. So requiring research, very cheap research, I guess relatively fast, sub 60 seconds. I just don't, I think what this means though is that it basically won't be used until late game TVT, which, okay. But I mean, that is going to be a very big change. I'm more interested in seeing how this works out though, of course. So now for Zerg, we got Lurkers, Adaptive Talons, the move speed bonus is removed, which I think is great. I think the Lurkers have been a little bit too much of an all-around good unit. Win on Hive Technology versus Protoss in particular. But Adaptive Talons also is reducing cost. Okay. Oh, I misread this initially. So yeah, you get a move speed bonus, but it doesn't reduce the speed burrow aspect of it. Well, in that case, it's a light touch on the move speed, but I think the burrow and unburrow is much more important. And also, I would actually, I guess I'm a Zerg hater, I'd actually like to see that gone entirely. And then to instead just, this does not seem like a fair trade-off to me, actually. This seems like a Zerg favorite thing. I don't like it. Infestor, Pathogen Glands upgrade removed. So the starting energy will start with a fungal. Fungal cast range reduced. Okay. Growth damage reduced. Interesting. So it's a less effective spell overall, but you get it immediately. Fungal damage and cast range is reduced to prevent infestors from killing marines with 2 consecutive fungals. I kind of understand this one. I don't think this has ever been that much of a problem, in my opinion. Infestor has no utility until reaching 75 energy. Okay, so you have to get Pathogen Glands and time that out correctly, which is not difficult to do. Or you get the Infestor and you wait, which I feel like is very possible in a lot of situations. I've never once thought to myself, well, like, damn, if the Infestor's fungal growth is a little bit worse, but they got it immediately. It fixed so many of our problems. Like, not really. And I actually really like the Infestor when it appears. You know, I think of a lot of dark games, and I get really excited at that. But I guess as far as super late game, the Infestor fungal growth can be a bit more obnoxious. This might help in those really incredibly late game scenarios where, like, one fungal could potentially end the game or what have you. I guess I'm okay with this, yeah. Spire, air armor upgrade cost reduced. Generally considered less useful than air weapons upgrade, despite being more expensive. So, this, I don't know. Okay, this and the next one especially makes me feel like a Zerg player just like started looking at these other miscellaneous things. Not miscellaneous, but I don't know, just air armor is considered less useful than air weapons upgrade despite being more expensive. I guess I don't know why I have a problem with it, to be fair, so I'm just going to move on. But the Viper one makes me just really not happy with Zerg's. Consume damage reduced from 200 to 150. Reduce the attention required for gathering Viper energy. This, to me, is like, I don't know, it's kind of on par with the whole, like, we change observer speed because Terrans were just barely not killing observers, which I understand is annoying, but I really don't think needs to be touched. I really think the Viper potentially killing your own hatchery is a fair trade-off for the fact that it's a super powerful spellcaster that can gain energy by soaking up buildings. That's an incredibly powerful tool. Obviously, no other race has that ability. They just have to wait the old-fashioned way to get energy. Like, basically, I'm saying cry more, Zergs. Holy shit. Get over it. You'll be okay with the occasional lapse of attention, and if you happen to be soaking up a hatchery and your attention lapse, that's on you, man. I am not on board with that. I am boomer as hell for that one. Broodlord, move speed. Okay, this is the one I actually really have a problem with. I don't think Broodlord should be more mobile. Move speed increased. Broodling move speed reduced. Okay. Health reduced. Okay. Attack speed reduced. So they're nerfing the Broodling, which, keep in mind, is the thing that shoots. It's not the Broodlord, right? They're nerfing the Broodling and buffing the Broodlord. Now, that it is a 0.4 buff, which is, you know, it's pretty big in StarCraft, I guess, but it's not, you know, huge, maybe. I guess I have to see it in action, actually, because, you know, the move speed got increased previously, and I didn't really give it much thought, and then I saw a Broodlord zooming around compared to their old selves, and I was like, oh, okay, that's speedy brutes, okay. So I don't know, to continue bumping up that number. I just also feel like speed is really so much of the essence of RTS, actually. And messing with speed ends up being usually a band-aid solution to things, as well as a surprisingly knock-on effect type of patch, where you're just like, oh, the move speed, that won't be that big of a deal, right? And then it just like boom, 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 and suddenly it's a huge, humongous deal. I just don't, I think the Broodlord is fine. And I don't think we should be encouraging more Broodlord use either, personally. Yeah. And reducing the strength of the Broodlings to compensate is just going to make them, I don't know, maybe even too questionable as far as those late-game stalemate situations. I guess maybe I should not be complaining. Maybe I actually feel like this would be easier to deal with. But yeah, I just don't like touching speed a lot of the time. It's kind of my general issue. Overlord deceleration speed. So when it kind of parks itself, it kind of goes woo. And it's just not going to do that anymore, I guess. Generate creep delay reduced as well. Stop and begin dropping creep to allow more active usage of queen. You want to encourage queen drop? No! 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 Holy shit, this is the worst idea ever. I'm sorry, some people actually made this idea, and they're much better at the game than I am. But I cannot believe that we're actually advocating for queen drops. I thought basically the community agreed that an offensive queen is a terrible game design. And I thought we moved past the point in which that was an argument. Like, people disagree. The queen should not be offensive. Oh, it can be offensive. I guess we got to live with what we got. It's been 13 years. But to then try and make it even better? No, you definitely don't do that. No to this. 100% no. This is a dumb reason. Transport upgraded. Move speed increased. Move speed pneumatized carapace increased. Obviously, this is move speed of a overlord, but a transport overlord is actually, you know, pretty important. And I don't think we should be allowing for more active drop usage from Zergs, because they're already so mobile on the ground, in my opinion. In combination with the Baneling damage nerf, which is going to be very important. Should not increase the overall strength of Baneling harass against Protoss. No, I don't like this. Ultralisk cost reduced. Unburrow time reduced. So they're trying to make ultras more viable. It is only a 25 mineral reduction, so I really can't complain, I think. And yeah, that's like, okay, all right, little ultra, okay, you can keep that. Hydralisk, speed and range upgrades combined. We did this before, and it created a lot of bad, horrific timing attacks against Protoss. I don't think we should do this. We're quickly responding to enemy air switches, such as Mutalisk, and supplement weaker banelings. We're more quickly responding to enemy air switches. Oh, they're talking about ZVZ. That confused me for a second. Okay. Except if we're going to start targeting ZVZ problems, we do have to consider ZVP and ZVT problems. And I'm considering my Protoss brethren out there. I feel like you guys are going to have a tough time, especially because the Hydras already got buffed in the last patch. I really don't think they specifically say that strength of Hydra-based timings we monitor during Protoss. I think we already know the answer. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to be really tough, and the Protoss are already having a difficult time. So shove off on the Hydraless upgrades. Good lord. Baneling. This I think is actually a very good change. Bonus damage per upgrade reduced from +2 to +2 versus all. So they're no longer going to two-shot or one-shot probes when they have the +2 upgrade. I think we've been asking for that for a very long time. I think it is far too effective, and I think this is going to be what I fight for personally to keep changed. The speed upgrade is reduced, though, and its upgrade timing is reduced, but its health bonus is also removed, which I'm going to be real with you. I didn't really realize that happened. I'm going to be absolutely real with you. Well, interesting. Well, with that in mind, I guess I am okay with everything overall. I was a little hesitant on the reduction on the cost, and the research time is a buff, but there's a health bonus. All right, then. To maintain a similar balance for 2 base Terran Marine tank based all-ins. You know, I'm actually pretty okay. I will absolutely be fighting for all of these changes, I think. I think this is fair. But I guess I'm also just really wanting this to go through. So I might be willing to negotiate far more. For Protoss, this is where I'm hoping we see some buffs. Protoss, forward shield upgrade cost. So they're less useful than attack armor upgrades for both air and ground in different scenarios. Current change helps increasing cost efficiency ratio. I think this is fine. I don't really mind this whatsoever. Cybernetics core. I mean, I guess the one thing I'll say is that shields are very good for those mass Archons armies that Protoss eventually get to in ZVP. They also are an additional upgrade for air and ground that no other race can compete with. So I do think you need to be careful about shield upgrades being super accessible as the game gets longer, but if the game's getting longer, then you can probably afford the shield as it was. I don't know. Cybernex core air armor upgrade cost reduced, considered less useful than air weapon upgrade despite being more expensive. This reasoning is so, I don't know, man. It feels like there must be a bigger and better reason than the ones they're giving us. Maybe it really is that simple. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things. But the same thing for the air armor in Zerg as well. I'm just like, that's your reason? Okay. I guess because I really don't even think about it that much for Zerg. You do think about it a lot for Protoss. Because, I mean, you think about it a lot for Zerg mutas, but not necessarily Corruptors. And one of Corruptors, you think about air armor quite a bit. I don't know where I stand with this armor stuff. So I'm just going to skip past it. Warp Prism is now more viewable on the minimap, which is fine. Disruptor, supply cost increased. Model scale reduced, so it's a little tinier. Radius increased from 0.5 to 0.625. It's currently hard to tell which disruptors of Purification Nova available when multiple are clumped together as the models intersect with each other. Reducing the model scale will fix that. Is this the radius of the model? Like the model hit box or whatever? I don't understand. That must be it. Because then why would they bring this up? The goal of supply cost increase is to reduce the potential of mass disruptor armies while allowing Protoss players to play disruptor as a strong mid-game and late-game tool. I don't mind that, actually. I think. I was afraid they were going to do something more to the disruptor, but I guess that's okay. Void Ray prismatic alignment move speed with flux veins increased. Yeah, the Void Ray gets an increase in speed. Great. Awesome. It just runs into the fungals faster. That's awesome. It also is going to be, well, I don't know about it more usable in proxy Void Rays, but the proxy Void Ray does go on for a long time, and it can't happen. Oh, I'm like also kind of just forgetting the context of this. Oh, right. So it's supposed to slow down when it gets overcharged. And now it's still going to be kind of speedy even with when it's prismatically aligned. Do I like that? I don't know. Moving on. Instead of just spending minutes trying to think myself through things. Tempest, acceleration, deceleration increased. Radius, model scale reduced. So they're more microable in general. And I just think that's the wrong direction with Tempest. They're big, late game, high single target damage units. I feel like with that you get slower, clumsier units mobility, and that just is the trade-off. Making them more microable, I don't know, I feel like that's not really the goal of the unit. And personally I don't like it, because I don't like the idea of fighting Tempests that are super microable, because the Terran sometimes is up against them without an appropriate number of Vikings, and Vikings microability is actually one of the biggest strengths of the Viking alongside its range, and then it has downsides elsewhere, and I don't know. Slow acceleration makes them feel slow to respond when already moving. That's kind of the point, is that you park them someplace safe and they do a bunch of damage from a distance. And then when the person goes, hey, stop that, you have to take some heat for it. And I think that's an appropriate thing for the unit. But I realize that maybe I'm saying no to some of the Protoss buffs, and it looks like maybe I just don't want Protoss to be buffed. Now, the issue so far while reading the Protoss changes is that I do want Protoss to get some better stuff going on, but some of the choices of the buffs just seem bad to me. And I think there's other places that'll make the game a lot more interesting and fun. But whatever. Mothership is going to be completely changed. Cost reduced drastically. Supply reduced by 2. That's pretty drastic. Build time reduced by about 40 seconds. 35 seconds. Speed increased. Lateral acceleration increased. How fast the unit changes direction. So the Mothership has always glided, almost like a science vessel in Brood War. He's always made it a bit of a weird micro unit. No longer lie behind other army units of some similar speed, which also is very helpful. Health shields reduced. Radius model scale reduced. It's not a mama ship, it's an auntie ship. No longer has energy. Recall now is 100 seconds in. I don't know what the old one was. Recall radius reduced. Time warp now is 60-second cooldown. I don't know what the old one was. Slow reduced. Radius reduced. Cast delay reduced. Cloak field is no longer passive. Is now an activated ability. They've completely changed it, and they've made it more like a Mothership core, so something that's a little more of the early, well, more the mid game, I guess. The Mothership core was literally only early game. Well, it was made for the early game, I guess, to cover some of the gaps of Protoss's defense. And the Mothership was obviously always a very late game unit, and they're basically bringing the Mothership down to something in between. So basically, I guess like a mid game unit, which I guess is conceptually, I don't really have an issue with that. Because I don't think the Mothership has to be this big, bad, hero-esque unit. Because I kind of disagree with that in general for StarCraft anyway. The Mothership doesn't make enough of a presence for me to complain. But the Mothership Core did, and you bet your ass that I complained a lot about the Mothership Core's place in Heart of the Swarm. So, to me, this feels like it's moving more towards the Mothership Core, which, if you can't tell, I am not super happy about. I don't think it's that fun or cool. Sentry Guardian Shield duration increased. Yeah, okay. Stasis Ward sight range increased. Yeah, okay. Immortal Baron also block the first instance of damage, which triggers the barrier. Great. Drain all the mortal shields as well as activating the barrier. Okay, and I think I'm totally on board with these last 3. Yeah, no complaints there. But some of the, especially when it comes to the late game units, I'm fearful of Mothership Core gameplay. I don't like it. And I know it's going to be different because it is just in a different place of the game, but I'm scared for that one. And then touching the capital ships is always concerning to me, especially the Tempest is not a particularly fun unit, and making it more mobile isn't going to make it much more fun for the people that are facing it. It might make it more fun for the Protoss players, but I think it's one of the most annoying units, and it's already slow while sieging. So to make them a bit of a faster sieging unit is, well, it's an oxymoron, is it? But it's not exactly what you have in mind. It's like giving the siege unit, the Lurker, a speed boost. Who would ever do that? Oh, wait. Anyway, no, I just don't like that. And they just speed. There's so many speed changes, which sometimes speed really is the ticket. You know, it really is like, oh, that's exactly what needs to be changed. But so much more often, throughout the 13 years of StarCraft 2 balance changes, I've read speed changes. And like I said, I think there's more of a knock-on effect than people anticipate. And I also think it's more of a band-aid for some of the foundational problems of units. So that's my opinion, but I'm not part of the balance team. And pretty much everyone part of the balance team, I believe, are much better players than I am. Pretty sure they're all pros. So those are my opinions. Do you agree, disagree? Do you like the patch overall? My official TLDR summary, I think some of their goals are good, some of them are bad, and the way they've approached many of their goals is subpar in my opinion. Overall, I do not like the direction of this patch. What I like is that they're clearly trying to do some bigger changes, and that I think everyone likes, even at the potential cost of having an imbalanced game for an extended period of time, because Blizzard isn't going to be on top of things very quickly. But if you are going to risk that, then maybe I would say you can focus on other things, not severely changing the Cyclone, not severely changing the Mothership. I just don't see those as the costs, the risk-reward factor really being balanced there, because we are going to have to keep in mind that it could be up to a year before we actually see some of these things fixed. So it could be 2 months and we realize these things are broken as hell, and then it could be a year beyond that until it actually gets fixed. So we got to keep that in mind when we look at these things. Yeah, that does it. So I will be doing a overview of the maps as well, where I'll probably have less opinions. I was surprised about the opinions I had for this one, and I look forward to that. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.